from the technical committee, I would like to thank them very much. I think this I felt was a bigger patient than all the patients he's been seeing all these days. But I think his support, him and the committee's support has been tremendous towards whatever we want to achieve in the last 3 weeks or so. And I would like to thank all of them for all the support extended. And I think as we discussed at the earlier press conference when they were appointed, there were some tasks we had already worked on, and I think on the first class structure, which we have almost completed the structure and passed on to them to look at it. And as he mentioned, considering the current situation, I think when there is a bubble in which a lot of the cricketers have to train, I think it makes a lot of sense to have a pool and an indoor facility at Kentaram where all the facilities are located in one place and the movement is reduced to the maximum. And at the same time, there were the players' contracts which we were working on with the committee and the SLC on the budgets which they had to work on. And we worked on a format and with the selectors, coach, and Tom overlooking the entire process of the ranking and the evaluation. We managed to put a system in place where we feel it will be very good for the future, not to depend on human assessment too much, and we want to try and improve on that as much as possible in the years to come, and to make it a more foolproof method rather than what has been there in the past, where they look at someone's face and then keep players happy by giving certain contracts just to keep them away and keep them on a certain party's side. And I think it's important to try and make it a more robust sort of system. And I would also like to get Tom to do a little bit of a presentation on what aspects we really wanted to look at, but there was much more detail in which we had to do the assessments, considering the fact that we didn't have much cricket last year, but they had to go back almost 2 years to get the performances. But con- considering those performances, looking at the future, I think we have to take some harsh decisions because the future and some of the past performances, though they came in as something which is quite important, and the majority shows as per the system is more focused on that. But this particular year we had to deviate a little bit from that to make it more balanced. But for sure, in the years to come, this system will have a much more robust and accurate sort of outcome in the future. So I don't intend talking very much, but I will hand you over to Tom to explain and go through the process. And the monitoring part is what is done through the budgets of SLC, and I think Ashley can chip in once the budgets are compared to last year, how the payments, you will see how the players are benefiting so much more from last year through this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Aravinda and Prof, and hello to everyone out there in the virtual media world. I think firstly I'd like to just make the point that this has been a long and a very considered process in re-evaluating the way that Sri Lankan cricket offer their annual contracts to their professional players. There was a lot of work done in exploring how other cricket boards around the world go through this process, and a lot of that information was brought into what we've come up with, which is Sri Lanka's contract system for this year and moving forward. As Aravinda alluded to, we're trying to do a very transparent and very consistent process where the three selectors and the head coach have got all the information, and it's a thorough and a fair system for all the players, not only the senior players, but all the players that are possibly going to represent Sri Lanka in that year. If we go to the first slide, one of the major differences for you to consider this year against previous years is the number of national contracts that are on offer. Just 24 players are offered a contract, where last year it was around 32, I believe. So it's a considerable reduction in number of contracts offered. There will also be offered what we're calling a domestic development contract. And with that, it is up to 6 players.
Kindly mute yourself. You will have to unmute when you do have a question as well. Okay.
So there'll be the development domestic contracts. We're up to 6 players. It doesn't have to be 6, but up to 6 players the selectors will consider offering the best performing domestic players, and those players that just missed out on a national contract. And the aim is to have those contracts focused on players under the age of 25. Then we have the incremental contracts, and that basically is for players that haven't received a contract throughout a contract year, but play enough games, whether it be Test cricket or whether it be ODIs or T20, to qualify for a contract. The overall scoring system is based on 50 points for performance, 20 for fitness, 10 for leadership, 10 for professionalism, and 10 for future potential and adaptability. I'll go through those in some more detail for you. So the player contracts are broken up into 4 categories: A, B, C, and D categories. In each category, there'll be 6 players, and that'll be broken up into 2 as an A1, or an or a B1, or a C1, or a D1, 2 in A2, and 2 in A3. And those categories have a slight financial difference within that main group A, B, C, or D. The player ranking assessment mechanism, the performance ranking mechanism, is out of 50 marks. So as Aravinda alluded to in his introduction, this year has been a very unique year for the selectors to make an assessment on the players. 2020 with COVID really had an impact not only here in Sri Lanka but around the world, and on a lot of different businesses. They had to be a little bit more creative in the way that they assessed players. So in this one-off year, they felt it was important to also include 2019 in their assessments. So there's 2 years of performances that they have taken into consideration, because in 2020 they only played 11 international matches, where in 2019 there was 42. So there's quite a considerable difference in the volume of cricket that the selectors had to choose from. Looking at the physical ranking mechanism, this is obviously an important area for Sri Lankan cricket to improve on their overall fitness, not only to have the players performing better on the field, but to keep them on the field. We've seen a number of players struggle with fitness, with injuries. A lot of that's to do with the the condition hasn't been as what it could be. So this is a focus. So there are measures that are very much part of this ranking mechanism, and 20 points allocated, both 10 for skin folds, and there obviously certain levels where you get 10 points for maximum skin fold if you're 75 or under, and then it's scaled down to just the 2 points if you're ranging between 83 and 85, and anything outside of that you're not getting registered with any points towards your national contract. With regards to the 2 kilometre time trial, again the same sort of sliding method. If you're under 835, you're getting maximum points of 10, otherwise you're losing out on points towards your national contract. Leadership has also been taken into consideration along with seniority. So leadership, there is a 5-point recognition, and with seniority there's another 5-point recognition. The selectors along with the coach have made those assessments and allocated those points towards both those areas. Firstly, with the seniority, that's related to players and the number of games they've played for Sri Lanka. So whether it be Test cricket, ODI cricket or T20 cricket, a point allocation is as follows: 1 point for Test, half point for ODI and T20 cricket. If you see on this page, it allows you to understand what that all means. So 5 marks if you're getting 100 points. So someone like an Angelo Matthews, for instance, has played 90 Test matches, that's 90 points, plus he's played an abundance of white ball cricket as well in ODI and T20 cricket. He comfortably gets 5 marks from a seniority point of view. I think it's self-explanatory as it slides down. A number of players fall in the other categories, but the majority, interesting enough, on the contracts haven't played enough international cricket to qualify for that above 50 mark. Other leadership categories which were considered is obviously holding previous leadership roles as captains. So we've got a number of players that have captained various formats for Sri Lanka, so that was taken into consideration, along with the other important things around leadership, communication, selflessness, and empathy, and all those critical areas that make up the right dynamic and culture within a national side. Around the professionalism ranking mechanism, that's out of 10, and again that's based in 2 main areas. One being the adherence to player code of conduct, which is not only the code of conduct at the ICC level, but that's at Sri Lankan cricket level as well, and other professional endeavours, ethics and values. So 5 marks for both of those areas, which accumulates to 10. So around the first part being code of conduct is self-explanatory. The other part, professionalism, is again pretty self-explanatory around the areas of punctuality, empathy, standards, playing group, mutual respect and relationships, all those things that are important markers in trying to create a strong culture for the future of Sri Lankan cricket. And finally, the future potential and adoptability ranking mechanism is 10 points for this. So scoring in 3 areas: long-term potential, so someone that the selectors feel that has a long-term opportunity to play for Sri Lanka and influence their performances over a long period of time. A high level of skill along with elite professionalism is another area, and also an area where it's important is that not only players that have the ability to dominate at home in whatever format they're playing, or all 3 formats, but also have the ability to showcase those skills and dominate away from home. With regards to the development contracts, domestic development contracts, again, as I touched on right at the beginning of this brief, the main takeaway here for you to consider is that a player can only have one of these contracts for up to 3 years. And that may happen in a staggered period of time, or it may happen 3 years in a row. But it's recognising those players have just missed out on national contracts, but are players of interest for the selectors to consider going forward. And it also can be a player that may be a player that is fitting a skill gap that the selectors feel that may be occurring in a year or two's time. So they're making sure they're preparing players for the future in various roles within the Sri Lankan team. The incremental contract, again, touched on at the beginning of this brief. Just to give you an understanding, a maximum of 10 points is required. So the test match is worth 3 points, ODI and T20 are worth 1 point. So if you accumulate 10 points, you then register for a Category D3 contract. So you enter the contract system, which is only fair and reasonable for players that have started to play and represent their country, that they get recognised with a contract. So that's again a new introduction to the contract system. With regards to the payment to other squad members, as you would know, with COVID, a lot of the national teams around the world have to travel with larger squads. And one of the major differences in this contract offer is that every player in that extended squad, if they're not in the playing 11, will still get paid 25% of the match fee in all the three formats. So recognition for their contribution towards the team around any game or any series, and allowing them to prepare accordingly, so they're making sure that they are knocking on the door and giving the selectors the headache that we want them to have. I'll pass this area over to Ashley, our CEO, to explain the financial side of the details.
Yeah. Moving forward, I think it's necessary for us to enlighten you all of the model which we have it. And when it comes to Sri Lanka cricket, beginning of every year, we incorporate a certain amount for player payments in our annual budget. And we make a 10% increase over the previous years. And there was a new model which was proposed by the technical committee. Based on the model which was proposed, we have broken the players into 4 categories, and each category has 3 brackets. And that was the amounts which is on the slide, which we have paid the players. And if you make a comparison with the previous year, if you go on to the next slide, you will get an idea how much of money we have allocated in the year 2021. And that's the amount which was in 2019-2020 contracts, where we have allocated 259 million. And in the year 2021, we have allocated 282 million, whereas a variance of 23 million for the player payments. And the technical committee was also of the view that we should also put some more money on the field where we recognize their efforts and their performance, not individual performance, as a team performance. So based on that, there are certain things which we have not incorporated in the budget, but nevertheless, Sri Lanka cricket took a decision. So I know there have been a lot of speculation out in the media saying that we have cut down on the player payments. So that's the reason we thought we'll give you all a breakdown what we are offering the players as incentives as well. In 2020, the domestic player fee is what is being highlighted here, and in 2021, the new structure which has been proposed by the technical committee, which needs to be certified by the membership at a SGN, and the player payments which has been proposed by them, we would be having a variance of 254 million. And this is something, again, as I indicated before, which we have not incorporated, but we will definitely allocate that kind of money, provided we proceed with the structure which has been proposed by the technical committee. When it comes to the national test match fees, I think if you make a comparison with all the other countries, I think we are in par, other than a few countries, India, Australia, and England. The rest of the countries, I think we are paying more as player fees for a year, for a match, for a player. And the test match fees, the committee also felt that we need to give more weightage towards for test matches, mainly due to the fact that we want to encourage the players to participate in test cricket. There are so many leagues which are taking place in the world. So therefore, in order to encourage the players to take part in test cricket, they also proposed an increase of $500 more for a test match. And the ODI match fees will remain as it is. That would be $5,000, 5,000 and 3,000 for T20 matches. 4,000. 4,000 and 3,000 as T20 match fee for ODIs and the T20s. We also have taken into consideration uh, for as incentives for taking part in the ICC tournaments as well as the ACC tournaments. And that's the amount which we offered in 2019 and 2021. There was a participation fees which was offered, that's $300, which we decided to keep $300,000, whereas in 2021 for the T20 World Cup we would be paying the same amount. And there was an amount which was introduced in 2019 which was taken off because the committee felt that we need to uh, uh, ensure that the players get qualified to the semi-finals, and winning of the semi-finals and the finals, they have basically increased the amounts uh, when you compare it with the 2019 figures which was offered. Uh, there was something which was not reflecting in our previous agreement when it comes to winning of the series. There was a payment which was made only of beating the first four ranked teams. But this time, the committee felt that we need to also encourage them to beat the teams below our rank and put more money rather than recognizing the individual efforts and making a seniority payment to pay the incentive to the team in order to win matches and win series. So that our rankings would automatically go up once you start winning the series with the low ranked teams as well as the upper ranked teams. This was again in 2019, the comparison, and the 2021 winning series, the comparisons which we have made, you can see the difference versus the 2019. If there was a clause which was introduced earlier, actually in 2019-15, we were going to introduce in 2021, which was taken off. We were to actually it was not there before, just to correct me, but subsequently we decided to introduce in 2021 because our rankings were dropping, and there were no the committee felt that there shouldn't be any deductions made for losing any series. Again, a comparison, what has been made as a win bonus comparison with the previous year in 2019 and 20 and 2021. You can see the difference when it comes to beating a rank one team, you will end up getting $25,000 more. And by beating a second ranked team, you will get more, $12,500 more. And also the other ranking teams, you will end up getting more money by which you wouldn't have got paid in the previous agreements. There was no win bonus in for T20 series and the committee felt that it needs to be introduced, and these are the amounts which was drafted into the agreements in the year 2021. In the previous year, 2019 and 20, we didn't have a bid bonus and the winning of a series was not recognized, but the committee felt that all three formats should be given the same recognition, and therefore they wanted us to include this into the win bonus as well for T20s. Seniority payment, which was there, has been drafted which was there in 2019 and 20, has been taken off, mainly due to the fact that the committee felt that all the players should be treated equally when they get onto the field. And so therefore, seniority payment, which was drafted into the module, when the evaluations have been done for the players, and when they were categorizing the players, that was taken and drafted it into the module so that they could get, based on their seniority levels, they could get recognized of which category you should fall into. You get more marks by categorizing them on the seniority basis. This was also there in the YDCC series in 2019-20, which has been taken off. As I indicated to you all, it has been incorporated into the and taken into consideration when the evaluation of players have been done, when the categorization of the players. That's another thing which has been taken off, the seniority payment of the players, because they felt that the equal, all the players should be treated equally when they get onto the field. Those are the player rankings, player gradings as per the recommendation of the committee, which comprised of the selectors, the head coach, and also Tom Moody as coming in as an observer. So basically, based on their recommendation, the categorization of the players have been done, and they have been drafted into 4 categories. And the top category, there are 6 players, and the second category, there are 6 players, 6, 6, 6. That altogether 24 players have been categorized, and also they have been categorized into different brackets as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Now we are going in for the Q&A session. Please raise your hand if you want to ask a question, and also make sure that you only do ask one question at a time, because there's a large number of questions that is expected to come in. And we are starting with Damit Veerasinghe, and also tell whom you are directing to the question as well. Damit, you can start.
My question is Tom Moody. Tom has got this of implementing from another nation. It coming from
Damit, you are breaking. Damit, you are breaking up.
My question is to Tom. Can you hear me?
Wait, Damit will come back to you. Hadi, you can ask your question. Damit will come back to you.
Hi, Tom. The question is, I just want to find out on what basis you all have made this player contracts. Is it something that you followed from another country, or is it something that is creative on your own, or you've taken some examples from other countries by creating this new player format for contracts?
Thank you for your question. Yeah, look, a thorough sort of review of what is being practiced around the world was taken into consideration, and there are some, variables out there to how people deal with it. And I think a lot of countries are still trying to find what is the right process for them. But yes, this was not just made out of thin air. This was done through thorough research, looking at other countries and their examples of they contract their players, and we put together what we thought was the best and the most effective and fair system for Sri Lanka.
Please turn off your cameras. I think I can see one camera is turned on. Can you please turn off? Can you turn off the camera? Camera को off करेगा ना? Tiron, you will have to turn off your camera, please. Tiron, please turn off your cameras. Okay.
And just to add to that, I think also, I think we wanted to make sure, like in a corporate, to have some sort of KPI for the players, so that we could evaluate them at the end of every year. So I think it's a process which I'm sure is in the best interest of the game and the players. And I think in the future, what we want to do is try and keep improving on this, because at least we've got a base now, whereas in the past we have been just arbitrarily awarding these contracts. So at least to start off, I think we have got a base now, and obviously the idea is to try and improve on it on a yearly basis, review it, and keep improving to reduce the human element of judgment as little as possible, because I think that is probably the way to try and make this a more robust and a precise sort of evaluation.
Damit, you can go in for your question, please.
Prasanna, can you hear me now?
We can, yeah, it's clear.
You've said incremental contracts are for the players who have just played few games for Sri Lanka. Is there a number of players in that category? And what happens to a player who plays only one format, say, for instance, Test cricket?
Yes.
Yeah. Look, there's no limit to incremental contracts. If there are a number of players throughout the contract year that manage to play, whether it be one format or multiple formats, and get 10 or more points in the system that we have put in place, they'll be awarded a contract. Players, if they're playing one format of the game, they have to accumulate enough points to qualify in that particular format. And obviously, if a player in that year does manage to play regularly in that format, you can guarantee when it comes to the following year's contract, his ranking in that particular format would have moved up dramatically, therefore putting him into contention for a full contract.
And these are for the players outside the 24. So that is.
Lahiru, Hero TV, you can go in for your question, please.
මෙවැනි නවතම ක්‍රීඩා තොරතුරු දැන ගැනීමට අපගේ SL Sport YouTube channel එක දැන්ම subscribe කරන්න.